Welcome to the Rusted Garden Homestead. Today I'm going to show you how to prune your tomato plant into a single stem, into a double stem, and I'll explain to you what that means. We're also going to take the suckers or the production stems that we remove and we're going to make clones out of them. I'll show you how to do that. First thing you want to do is decide how do you want to prune your tomato plants. There is no exact way to prune, it's more of an art. You don't have to prune, and you prune based on two reasons. First reason is you have diseases that come into your garden and you have to manage the size because the diseases get out of control. Second reason is you want to maintain the size of the tomato plant. Sometimes that's to manage disease. Sometimes that might be because in here I have this tomato plant planted with squash and zucchini. Maybe you want to manage the plant down to size so it's a little bit smaller, a little bit more manageable, but you're still going to get tons of tomatoes. So you just have to make some decisions. If you have no disease and you have tons of space, you can just let your tomato grow and it'll do perfectly fine. Alright, so first thing you want to do is identify the main stem. The main stem starts in the ground and it goes straight up. Straight up you see leaves come out. The suckers are in there, I'll show you that in a second, and it's usually leaf, flowers, this is a Rapunzel, flowers, continues to go up, another leaf, more flowers. Different varieties may have a couple of leaves, then flowers, a couple of leaves and flowers. They may have one leaf come out, then flowers. It all depends on the variety. But the production stem, the first stem comes out of the ground, continues straight up, and it's a combination of leaves, flowers, and you can see tiny tomatoes on there. Single stem. Now, and stay with me because this is going to make perfect sense. Coming out of the ground is the main stem and then a leaf. So right where there's a stem, a leaf comes out, and in that joint is what we commonly call a sucker. It will produce a clone of the tomato. I'm going to show you how to clone this, root it, and you'll have more tomatoes for later in the year. That sucker starts really small, continues to grow, it will develop leaves and flowers, and it will produce tomatoes. That's why I call it a production stem. It's an exact clone of this plant. So leaf, that's a sucker. I don't want it in there, so I'm going to cut this out. Once you cut out the sucker or production stem, just pop it into water and it will root out, and you're going to have a clone of the tomato plant. Now this is a little bit large. I recommend staying about this size or smaller when you're making your clones, and we'll fill that up as we go along. So now we removed one sucker out of there. Coming out of the ground is another sucker. It's hard to tell because there's no leaf coming out here, but we want to remove that, and you can see that it's much larger, and sometimes you can catch it producing flowers in there. We're not going to keep that one. Continue to go up. Main stem, leaf comes out right in the joint. Sucker production stem, that's a perfect size. That's going to go into there. We'll have clones. And then coming around here, that's another sucker, another sucker. I just don't want the growth of these vines going out this way. You could leave them if you want to. This one's a little bit, it would actually root out, but I don't need 30 clones, so I'm going to put this one into the water. I'm going to leave the leaves in there, and you want to do this slowly. You don't want to shock the plant. Here's a good example of one that's just starting. So main stem, leaf comes out, and then the little sucker's starting. We're going to let that one grow for a little bit because I don't want to totally shock this plant. You only want to take off maybe 15% of the plant at once, leaving it open. So here's the decision I made. So single stem would be just following this main stem all the way up this way, and this stem would just get tied on here. It would flower, it would produce fruit, and you just have a nice single stem going all the way up. This is perfect for your indeterminate tomatoes. This is really important. If you don't know whether or not your tomato is indeterminate or determinate, look it up. Just look up Rapunzel seeds on the web. You'll find seed companies. It will tell you if it's an indeterminate plant or Determinate variety. And this one will continue to grow all season. You only want to prune the indeterminate varieties because they continue to grow and grow and grow. Determinate varieties get to about a set height, produce a lot of flowers, produce the fruit, all within a couple of weeks, and then they die back. There's really no need to prune them except some of the bottom leaves. So again, main stem all the way up. So right here, and this is important, this main stem had a leaf that came out, had a sucker that started small, a production stem right here, started just like this, got to this size, that's another sucker, and it continued to grow. This is now my second stem, so I'm going to prune this to 2 stems. The main stem that branches this way, the second sucker or production stem that I let go, and I don't know if it's producing, yeah, so right in here you can see the flower cluster. And this variety looks like it tends to do 1, 2, 3 groups of leaves, 4, 5, and then a flower cluster. Sometimes the variety may do 2 clumps of leaves and then flowers, 3 clumps of leaves and flowers, but that's generally what double stem pruning looks like. The main stem comes up, you keep one of the production stems, let it split out, and it'll continue to grow, and I will get 2 stems coming straight up this way, all the production. The Rapunzel's really cool because this truss continues to flower and it leaves a long flow of tomatoes, kind of like Rapunzel's hair. That's why it's called Rapunzel. And I just didn't want this to be overcrowded with tomatoes everywhere. I want to see them coming out of the tomato plant, hanging down. I think it'll look really cool. Over here I've got squash and zucchini, so I didn't want the other stems, like I'm going to remove these eventually, these 2 guys. Want them going everywhere. You could leave them if you want. But that's the basic idea of single stem pruning, double stem pruning. As we go up, I don't see any more forming, but you know, going ahead, eventually right in this joint, the leaf comes out, a sucker production stem would come out of here. So as we were doing this, I'm going to stop here now. Later on I'll remove a little bit more. I'll give it about another 5 days worth of growth. When you take out about 15%, look for it to grow another 4, 5, 6 inches, get more leaves, and then remove a little bit more. You don't have to rush through it. And then these are all going to be clones. Put them inside, sunny windowsill. You'll see them start to root out when they have a nice mass of roots. Put them into a cup or small container. Let them establish, and then you can go put them into the garden. These will be an exact clone of this tomato plant. Hope this gives you some idea of what sucker and production stems are, how to prune for a single stem or a double stem, and gives you some ideas of how you may want to control tomato growth in your garden. Thanks for watching. Please check out my seed shop at therustedgarden.com.